Cause, a principle, aim, or movement that because of a deep commitment, one is prepared to defend or advocate. Karibu. Karibu is a Kiswahili word that means welcome. Welcome, you found yourself in a peaceful place, a place where you can grow and develop, and we hope grow and develop to your fullest potential. The Cause Podcast is a space for you to be like George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic when they say, free your mind and your bottom will follow. This is a podcast that we hope will expand your mind and raise your consciousness. Welcome to The Cause. Conversations on music, history, and democracy. It is certain, in any case, that ignorance, allied with power, is the most ferocious enemy justice can have. James Baldwin. Today, the great cause, allyship. What does it mean to be an ally? And even more, an active ally. We need more than allies. People are using that term, ally, as a buzzword. Let's break it down. Let's talk about it. Today's cause, allyship, allyhood. To be an ally is good. Let's define it. Allyship. Active support for the rights of a marginalized group without being a member of it. Active support. It seems to me that our conception of the cause, a great cause, at the heart of it, integral to it, intrinsic to it, then is a conception of allyship and allyhood. We can't do it all by ourselves. We can only do it together. This is about bringing people together. We conceive of this podcast as a classroom. It's important for us to sometimes use rhetorical strategies to break things down, to make some of these concepts, some of these ideas accessible. So the question is, what is allyship in simple words? I'm not going to use a bunch of $25 words on you today. This is about breaking it down. How do I sound? What is allyship in simple words? Allyship refers to the actions, behaviors, and practices that people take to support, amplify, and advocate with others, especially individuals who don't belong to the same social identity groups as themselves. This is that concept of Ubuntu, that we all share humanity. I am because we are, and we are because I am. Shared humanity. Allies acknowledge that they cannot achieve their full and rich and beautiful humanity without everybody else being able to achieve their full humanity. So reciprocity is at the heart of being an authentic ally. And when I say authentic ally, that means that we are acknowledging there are inauthentic allies. As we say in the hood where I come from, it's a lot of folk faking the funk. They not gonna bust a grape, and if they did bust a grape, they would be scared of the juice. Feeling good. Talking about allies today, y'all. In some of the movement circles that I work in, it's important to come up with acronyms the same way I did with the CAAAS. And we say that means the cause. So acronyms. Ally, ALLY. In many activist circles, we say that the acronym stands for action, listening, learning, and yielding. I repeat, action, listening, learning, and yielding. I think one of the things about being an ally means uninternalizing some things, disrupting some learned behaviors, the fact that we've all been socialized to have certain kind of biases, prejudices. How do we disrupt our relationship to the negative and create new relationships that would be more positive, more progressive, more transformative? Real allies, active allies are preoccupied with transformation, transforming themselves and transforming society. In fact, it's like Frantz Fanon said in his classic work, The Wretched of the Earth. We must transform ourselves in the very process in which we are attempting to change the world. Self-transformation and social transformation are at the heart of what it means to be an ally. We should be really clear. Allyship is not an identity. It is a consistent process. So we're talking about a process. It's not something that has an end result per se. It's organic. It's much like human life, right? It's open to the messiness of human life. That gives it a kind of heft. So, and even anti-racism isn't linear or binary. If we were talking about people that are anti-racist allies, because there are a lot of different kinds of allies out there. We need anti-sexist allies, anti-heterosexist allies. We need allies of the environment, allies of people with different abilities and disabilities, allies. So even that term is an umbrella term. That what we're going to do today is bring an intersectional analysis, an intersectional framework to what it means to be an ally. Anti-racism, if we were to focus on anti-racist allies, that's not something that's linear. It's not binary. It requires consistency, work, and introspection. The term ally is often misinterpreted as a title or identity as opposed to a process. Yes. Energy can often waver, but we must understand that there is no simplicity or completion in the battle against racism or sexism or heterosexism or environmental injustice or food insecurity. It's expansive. Our conceptions of allyship, allyhood, should be much more expansive. And part of what we're doing in this particular episode, we are remixing what it means to be an ally. We are, dare I say, radicalizing what it means to be an ally. We are moving beyond liberal conceptions of what it means to be an ally. This is why it is crucial to understand the nuances between a reactive allyship and a proactive allyship in order to make long-lasting systemic change. Reactive, proactive. It's important for any conception of allyship for people not simply to react to racism, react to patriarchy, to misogyny, to queerphobia, to transphobia, to bourgeoisism, to hypermaterialism. Let's not just react, but to be proactive, you have to anticipate You have to be on the lookout. We need a certain kind of vigilance in order to be authentic. An authentic ally, they can anticipate the foolishness before it even arises. They challenge it. They stay ready. And of course, as we say in the African American community, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. If you stay ready, well, I better stop. I feel like my grandmama has been here today. You stay ready, you ain't got to get. Woo. Reactive. Reactive allyship is usually a quick response to something that a person is affected by in that specific moment. This usually means that once that conversation or event or incident is over, that individual will move on quickly. We need people that have the ability to sort of drill down on some of these microaggressions, whether it be racial, gender, or have to do with somebody's sexual preferences or sexual orientation, even class biases that are going on. We need folks that are going to, as James Baldwin said, bear witness. Who will come with us and bear witness, not simply to the bad, the horror, the tragedy, but also how the different techniques and tactics that we're using to overcome. I want you to think about one of the anthems of the civil rights movement, we shall overcome. How are we going to do that? We need some allies who are going to support this transformative work that we are doing. I'm also saying allyhood and allyship is simultaneously personal and political. Now I'm nodding to the slogan of the women's liberation movement, the personal is political. See, they're inextricable. When we start talking about being an ally, in particular, let's also talk about men combating patriarchy, men challenging their sexist socialization, disrupting your relationship to patriarchy and misogyny. I'm also talking about straight folk. What does it mean to be an active ally of the LGBTQIA+ community? You can't just show up during Pride Month and dance to disco and all the other fabulous and flamboyant music that is created and coming out of queer culture and the queer community. But what about beyond Pride Month? How do we really, really show up? How do we bear witness? How do we provide resources and support and, dare I say, love? Because for me, real allies are preoccupied with love at the heart of authentic allyship. Authentic allyhood is a love ethic. How many straight folk need to queer their conception of love in order to really love queer folk? How many straight folk need to really open their conceptions of love to trans love? Transgressive love can lead to transcendent love. Straight people don't have a monopoly on love. Just like a lot of people found out straight folk don't have a monopoly on marriage. I better stop though. I don't want to get y'all in trouble. More than anything else, I would say that fear and guilt are often the real motors inside the machine of reactive allyship, reactive allyhood. We need folks that are going to be able to move beyond fear, move beyond guilt, and even more than that, how can we harness that? How can we flip fear into a fight, a progressive fight, right? Into us committing and standing up to a particular cause. How do we use guilt and make sure that we turn it into something that's not simply a pitfall, but like a launching pad, so we can create a whole new way to be human, a whole new way to learn, to live, to love, and to fight for liberation, hopefully and prayerfully, non-violently, because we have too much violence in this world. Real allies also are radical pacifists. They're committed to solving our problems civilly. Imagine that in a democratic society, if everybody became each other's allies, if we had each other's back, if we really practice a kind of familyhood. In fact, we go back to the etymology of the word citizen. Like we sort of share this culture, right? These democratic ideals. Real allies are committed to those. And so now that we sort of work through this reactive allyship piece, proactive allyship doesn't centralize fear or guilt. Instead, it recognizes the necessity of being uncomfortable to learn and grow. Just think about this. For any of my students who are listening to this podcast, just think about how often some of my students are uncomfortable in my classrooms. In fact, I argue that growing pains are good. In fact, my grandmama and them, my mama and them taught me that when I was a little baby, now I don't remember, but when I was a little baby, I teethed. It's painful to watch your child, the little teeth, come in their little gums. But you gotta go through that if you ever want to be able to eat food on your own. You gotta go through it. And that's where there's also a blues aesthetic connected to allyship and allyhood. Blues, as you know, is the sound not simply of sorrow, but the sound of celebration. It is both. It is simultaneously the sound of sorrow, but also the sound of celebration. Why? The celebration part. I know everybody's hip to the sorrow part. But the celebration part, when I listen to Bessie Smith and Coco Taylor, when I listen to Howling Wolf and Muddy Waters, when I listen to Robert Johnson and Charlie Patton, when I listen to my brother and my friend Otis Taylor, I realize I'm not the only person in this world that's having a hard time. And in that sense, the blues can also be incredibly therapeutic, because the blues acknowledges our hurt and helps us to know we have the potential to heal, because we know that some folks have healed from it because they can sing about it, and very powerfully. If you ever put on that old Wolf, I'm talking about Howlin' Wolf, one of my favorites. You put on that B.B. King and that Bobby Blue Bland, that Johnny Taylor, that Z.Z. Hill. Don't get me talking. I'll tell you everything I know. If you start me to talk, I'll tell you everything I know. Really, really important. So again, being uncomfortable is part of the process. That's what it means to really begin your journey in allyship or allyhood. You've got to be cool being uncomfortable. See, feeling uncomfortable with the reality of your past actions or inactions can often provoke fear, but it is the provocative choice in learning from these mistakes which makes a difference. You got to learn from it. It's a provocation. Use your fear, use your guilt, use your action or inaction, your missteps and mistakes. Let that lead you to a higher level of life, to a higher consciousness. And again, one of the greatest causes that this podcast is devoted to is consciousness raising, to raise your consciousness, to help you heal and live your life on a higher level. We talking about allies today, allyhood, allyship.
Are you ready to dive deep into the rich histories, cultures, and arts of Africa and the African diaspora? At the Center for African and African American Studies, affectionately known as The Cause, we're leading the way in research, arts, and student engagement at the University of Colorado, Boulder. The Cause is more than just a research center. It's a space where students, faculty, artists, allies, and activists come together to explore African and African American experiences, from historical legacies to modern cultural expressions. And at the heart of it all, our students, playing a central role in everything we do. They're the future of this important cultural legacy, working side by side with faculty on groundbreaking projects and events that impact not just the campus, but the community and wider world. Research projects and events that impact not just our beloved CU campus, but the community and world at large.
Our mission? To foster academic excellence, social responsibility, and artistic expression, with programs that inspire leadership and advocacy for social justice. Whether you're interested in visual arts, music, or deepening your understanding of African American culture, The Cause is the place for you.
But we can't do it alone. The Cause relies on the generous support of our community to continue making a difference. By giving to the Center for African and African American Studies, you help us expand research, create opportunities for artists, support our students, and drive meaningful social change. And right now, your gift will go even further. All donations will be matched by CU Boulder Chancellor Justin Swartz for up to $1 million or until May 30th, 2026. To make your impact today, visit colorado.edu/center/cause and click on Support the Cause. Every contribution, large or small, brings us closer to a future of unity, knowledge, and transformation.
So, if you're looking for a community where history, culture, and creativity converge, visit the Center for African and African American Studies at CU Boulder. Come join The Cause and be a part of a movement for unity, knowledge, and social change.
Learn more and give today at colorado.edu/center/cause. We can't wait to welcome you to The Cause.
So now, when we start thinking about allyship and allyhood as a journey, as a process, that opens up whole brand new possibilities. That means that you don't have to be perfect. See, beware of the pitfalls of perfectionism. That's not the point of allyship or allyhood. It's about doing the best that you can in that particular moment and learning whenever some of this stuff, me personally, here's a personal anecdote. I have been in situations where a microaggression has arisen, some kind of foolishness, and I didn't do what I could have done or should have done, or perhaps even in my heart of heart wanted to do in that particular moment, but I learned from that. So what lessons can we learn even from our mistakes, right? From things that we've done in the past. By saying that, I'm also letting you know that we need to leave room for redemption. Please know that. Real allies, authentic allies, genuine allies, always leave room for redemption. That's an act of love, radical love, dare I say, revolutionary love. I think that we need, whatever we're calling love, we need to take it to the next level in this world so full of hate and corruption. We need a little bit more of that. Look at how, for me, the subtext of my conception of allyship or allyhood is love. A love ethic is at the heart of what it means to be an authentic ally. Being proactive requires planning and strategies and tactics along with the action that you follow up on over and over again. So repetition, right, is part of how we're going to learn to take our lives in a different direction, take our thought, our behavior in a different direction. This needs to be ingrained in your daily life, just like doing an exercise class or reading daily. Anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-heterosexism, just to name a few. This kind of work needs to be another element of your day-to-day routine. So please note this emphasis daily. Some people get up and they act a fool every day. Some people wake up, they know they got some bad habits, and they do that every day. I ain't just talking about my little cousins and them. I ain't gonna call no names, especially not nobody government name. We don't do that on this podcast. We don't do that kind of thing here. But this work needs to be daily. So just notice patterns happen because of the repetition. So people have been doing negative, anti-human things on a daily basis. We need to do some pro-human, right, things on a daily basis to disrupt that kind of negative thinking, that kind of backwards, dare I say, thinking. Now, let me give you some practical examples. Again, class is in session, so I'm trying to give you this lesson. Number one, I'm breaking it down. Having conversations with your friends in positions of power about racism, about sexism, about heterosexism, about bourgeoisism. I said it. Materialism, hypermaterialism. Having these conversations when it's not on the agenda. See, some people be planning for it. They get ready for it, so they have all their little defenses ready. No, you got to make a sound in the east and hit them in the west. I'm okay with making people uncomfortable. We're going to need to have some difficult dialogues. And some of y'all know I'm not the only person that have family members I need to have some difficult dialogues with. Some of y'all need to keep it real, practice radical honesty. You got that wild uncle who be talking wild. You need to have a conversation with him. That's number one, having these conversations when it's not on the agenda. Number two, calling out racism, sexism, heterosexism, when you see it, when you hear it, when you experience it. I'm talking about audacity. We need some folks. Allies must be audacious. Number three, challenging your place of work. I'm sorry. You're going to have to take it on your job. I'm sorry. I'm going to teach you some terms right now. Institutional bias. Some of us work for employers. We know they tripping when it comes to queer people and trans people. We know they tripping when it comes to women folk. Let's call it out. We know they tripping. Tripping meaning they wrong, they backwards, they illin when it comes to BIPOC people, to people with different abilities and disabilities, to people with records. How many people that are formerly incarcerated, and this society says that they're going to give them a second chance, and they get out and they can't get a job nowhere. What's up with that? What about second chances? What about leaving room for redemption? Allies are the first ones. They create opportunities. They model what it means to give people space and grace and leave room for people to redeem themselves. Last one, educating yourself over and over again, decolonizing yourself. I said it. We need some allies to this process of decolonization. We're going to devote a whole podcast to decolonial discourse, to decolonization. We're going to break that one down too. I know some of these are $5 words. Just work with me. That's okay. I'm here to be your gold and your guide. I'm right here with you. I ain't going to leave you. See, that's the whole point of this. That's why we doing this here. See, we want to try to make some of these ideas more accessible to as wide an audience as possible. This is some of the things we've learned in the world of critical pedagogy and feminist pedagogy, okay, and queer pedagogy. They talk about translating these ideas across race, across gender, across class, across sexual orientation, nationality, ability, and disability. See, we want to do some border crossing, some boundary crossing. We want to sort of break those things down. Real allies cross real borders. Real allies break down real barriers, and they create access and opportunity as widely as they possibly can. So being proactive shifts your allyship from being performative and reactive into being a fundamental part of your culture. It is only then that you can use these tools to influence everybody in your networks, everybody on your social media, all the people who you're trying to reach with your platform. And I'm also acknowledging that individually, each and every last one of us has power. Yes, I said it. Somebody from the public housing projects acknowledges that I have power. I'm not powerless. Okay? This is really important. So where I may not have any racial privilege, I want to acknowledge I do when it comes to gender in a patriarchal society. So how do we use this to open up some opportunities, to turn some attention to the most marginalized among us? And if you get a book by Patricia Hill Collins called Intersectionality, you'll see this incredible concept of multiply marginalized people, because a lot of us don't have just one area in which we are marginalized. No, an intersectional conception of allyship or allyhood accounts for multiply marginalized people. Multiply marginalized. So it's not this single axis of oppression business that Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989 pointed out. In her articulation of critical race theory, we're talking about these interlocking systems of oppression. Things like, we're talking about a system like racism, the way it overlaps and intersects with sexism and heterosexism and classism and colonial and capitalism and colonialism, you see, and ableism, right? This is really, really important for us to understand multiply marginalized people. We live in that kind of complex and complicated world. So those people that are still trying to come up with some kind of mono theory, a single, theory that's going to be a panacea for everything that we're going through in the 21st century, it's like they are fish out of water. They sitting up there just flapping on the seashore. Have mercy upon them. Put them back in the water. Come on, talk to me. So this fight towards equality and empowerment, this is a real struggle. This is a protracted struggle. It cannot solely be the responsibility of the marginalized and the multiply marginalized. It requires those with privilege to contribute. In fact, I argue they have a moral obligation, a responsibility. You can't say that you're human and see this level of human suffering and social misery and not. Your conscience should compel you to get involved, not in a performative way, not in a reactive way, but in an authentic way, in a proactive way. This is powerful. This is the direction that we go in. It needs to stay consistent until the multiply marginalized are in safe spaces, are in spaces and places where they are amplified and empowered and equal. We all have a part to play in dismantling these interlocking systems of oppression, even as we have been socialized to accept them, to act like that they are normal or neutral or universal. They are not. People created them and people can change them. Ooh, I like it when the Black Panther Party said, all power to the people. That was the slogan. Look it up. All power to the people. That sounds like a Democratic slogan now, don't it? And it is in every choice that we make, from the clothes we wear to the food we eat, your consumption dollars in a capitalist society. Oh, yes. But let's make sure we have some anti-oppression economics. We decide whether to be anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-heterosexist, or simply non-racist, non-sexist, non-heterosexist. We must hold ourselves accountable. Self-accountability. This is at the heart of what it means to be a real ally, to embrace authentic allyship, self-accountability, and you actually have to stop talking about it and start doing it. All right, we reached the point of the show where we've come to the poetic pause. You know, we like to ease up on y'all every now and then. It's not always hot and heavy. Sometimes you got to get light and right. And so now I want to invoke my intellectual ancestor, William Edward Burghardt Du Bois, W.E.B. Du Bois, who wrote one of my favorite and most inspiring essays, poems, passages, treatises, manifestos from him. Is called I Am Resolved, and he published it in January of 1912. And in particular, this is connected to what it means to be an ally. You're going to see that Du Bois is not simply thinking about himself and other African-American men. He also talks about what it means to be in humanhood, right? In connection, to share humanity with other people, particularly BIPOC women, especially African-American women and girls. And so it's really, really powerful. Also groups, other BIPOC groups, that he's resolved to fight for the rights. And for Du Bois fighting, much like myself, we actually do that through the barrel of a pen, with our vocal cords, with our voices. He, much like me, I think Du Bois was only 5'4", so we're both little, short, small. Man, so we're not trying to get in the ring and go 12 rounds or 10 rounds, whatever it is. No, I mean, there are a lot of different ways that we can fight for freedom. And again, we believe in fighting for freedom peacefully. We believe in bearing witness. And so this is a concept that is not simply connected to Du Bois, but also James Baldwin talks a great deal about bearing witness. Real allies bear witness. I am resolved in this new year to play the man, to stand straight, to look the world squarely in the eye, and walk to my work with no shuffle or slouch. I am resolved to be satisfied with no treatment which ignores my manhood and my right to be counted as one among men. I am resolved to be quiet and law-abiding, but to refuse to cringe in body or in soul, to resent deliberate insult, and to assert my just rights in the face of wanton aggression. I am resolved to defend and assert the absolute equality of the Black race with any and all other human races and its divine right to equal and just treatment. I am resolved to be ready at all times and in all places to bear witness with pen, voice, money, and deed against the horrible crime of lynching and of Jim Crow legislation, the injustice of all color discrimination, the wrong of disenfranchisement for race, for gender, the inequality of war under any circumstances, and the deep damnation of present method of distributing the world's work and wealth. I am resolved to defend the poor and the weak of every race and hue, and especially to guard my mother, my wife, my daughter, and all my darker sisters from the insults and aggression of white men and Black, with the last strength of my body and the last suffering of my soul. For these things I am resolved unflinchingly to stand, and if this resolve costs me pain, poverty, slander, and even life itself, I will remember the word of the prophet, how he sang, though love repine and reason chafe, there can a voice without reply till man's perdition to be safe, when for the truth he ought to die. This is an original written by me. It's called I Have Tasted My Tears. This poem is a gift, is a love letter to allies. So even when I say I and my in this poem, this is a gift. This is something I want to share with allies about my own struggle in terms of allyhood and allyship. So here is the kind of radical vulnerability that any authentic ally is going to need to be able to be vulnerable. You're going to have to be willing to make some sacrifices. And so I hope you will accept this poem in the spirit in which I've written it and as a gift. I have tasted my tears while watching others sit in the soft sunlight. I have mourned death and sang the blues and accepted insults to avoid fights. I have heard bluebirds sing and watched vultures circle around my broken body. I've listened to Bessie Smith and Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis and Billie Holiday, Nina Simone and John Coltrane. They provided my troubled mind and broken heart with makeshift therapy. Sometimes life seems like one long journey into pain and sorrow, yet and still I continue to pray for a truly liberated tomorrow. free from the hurt which has always haunted my past, free from misery and the cloak of the outcast. Someday, some way, somehow, I have tasted my tears. Salt soaked my face. I have tasted my tears and bore memories that no laughter can erase. The raging seas of life have rocked my raft, but here I remain, tasting tears. In terms of this piece, I think that real allies have to be prepared to taste their tears. If you're gonna be a real ally, it's gonna cost you something. For me to be a real ally means real sacrifice. It means getting out of my comfort zone. I say yet again, I have been out of my comfort zone for 20 years in Boulder, Colorado. I'm not asking anybody listening to this podcast to do something that I myself am not doing. I'm a professor of African American studies, and I live in one of the most un-African American environments in the United States of America, but we changing that. This podcast is a contribution to the beauty and the diversity of humanity in Boulder County.
Thank you for joining us for the Cause Podcast with Dr. Reiland Rabaka. If you'd like to contact Dr. Rabaka or the Center for African and African American Studies, email cause, CAAAS, @colorado.edu. For your letters, questions, and suggestions regarding the podcast, email us, thecause@gmail.com, CAAAS. We may even read your letter on the air. The Cause Podcast with Dr. Reiland Rabaka is produced and edited by John Arnold and is a production of the Center for African and African American Studies, The Cause, at the University of Colorado Boulder. For more information, visit us online at colorado.edu/center/cause, CAAAS.
Class is in session, so come and get your lesson. Ooh, the Cause Podcast. I love that. Do you love that?